It's been a pretty difficult week for the government with the publication of the Sue Gray report. You've come out to bat for the government not once but twice. I also interviewed you on Wednesday, the day of the publication.
Yes, I was at Hillsborough Castle. I was just awaiting the arrival of the US delegation to come have dinner and talk about the issues with the Northern Ireland Protocol and Northern Ireland more generally.
You've got a bit of a history, though, haven't you, coming out to bat for the government on these really difficult days. And I remember talking to you after Matt Hancock had been caught breaking COVID rules, after Marcus Rashford's free school meal policy. I mean, you're hoping that Number 10 might one day let you out when there's a good news story to talk about.
Well, actually, this week is an example, actually. We have quite a lot of work going on this week. Actually, in Northern Ireland, we've had the second reading of a very, very important, delicate but important piece of legislation. So it's been a busy week all round. I'm always happy to come out and talk about what we're doing in government because we're focused on delivering for people and getting the job done in a way that works for people across the UK.
OK. Well, of course, it's just 4 days since you were speaking here to me. But even in those 4 days, we've had more allegations coming out around the publication of the Sue Gray report into partying in Downing Street during lockdown. Now, according to the Sunday Times, I just want to go through what's in the Sunday Times today because it does feel quite significant. On the night before her report, she was apparently lobbied to make changes to it. This is the Sunday Times. Simon Case, the Cabinet Secretary, Samantha Jones, the Permanent Secretary at Number 10, and Alex Chisholm, the Permanent Secretary to the Cabinet Office, are understood to have pressed Gray to water down her conclusions. They go on to say, sources said that Case's name was among those they wanted to remove. Other changes were requested to sections of the report referring to the Prime Minister's wife, Carrie. Is that true?
I don't recognise any of that. And look, I've got to say, we've had a police investigation into all of these issues now. They've come to their conclusions, made their decisions, and we've had Sue Gray. And I don't think anybody would question the independence and the probity of either the police. And I have to say, as I said to you on Wednesday, having worked with Sue Gray in her previous roles and my previous roles, I wouldn't in any way question Sue Gray's independence and determination to deliver a report that she is comfortable is a full and complete report, which is what she's done.
You say you don't recognise this. What does that mean? What does that mean? I don't recognise.
Well, look, nobody has said anything of the sort to me that reflects what the Times have you've just outlined from the Times.
But with respect, though, no one's saying that they were lobbying you to try and change.
No.
That the allegation is that very senior people, including Simon Case, the Cabinet Secretary, were directly trying to influence the report.
Well, as I say, having worked with Sue Gray in other areas, and actually in her well, not on the report, but in her role as dealing with union issues and things like that, if Sue Gray wasn't comfortable, she wouldn't be putting the report out. She has put a report out that she is comfortable with. She's an independently minded, as well as doing this in an independent kind of capacity, and a very professional civil servant. So I don't believe that anybody, in knowing Sue Gray, I don't believe anybody would be able to pressure Sue Gray into putting any kind of report out that she wasn't comfortable with the full and proper report.
The problem is, you say you know Sue Gray. I don't know Sue Gray.
No,
I've never met her.
That, yeah.
Our viewers don't know Sue Gray. We're just supposed to be taking this on trust.
Well, no, it can go further than that, because don't forget, it's not just the Sue Gray report. We've also had the police investigation, and the police have come to...
And they fined Boris Johnson for breaking the law.
They fined the Prime Minister for one
Well, so that's actually quite good, then?
No,
we're now being told that actually
I'm not saying it's good. Look, there's no denying this whole situation is not good. It shouldn't have happened. That's why the Prime Minister, I think, was right to go out and apologise for that. I have to say there were things in that report that were reported, we spoke briefly about earlier in the week, around how some of the security and cleaning staff were treated. It was abhorrent. Nobody should be treated like that. You're one team working together for the benefit of the country. Whatever your role in it is, it's an important part. People should be treated with respect. I think that's why it's good that this report was done, and we're able to now deal with the issues. And the Prime Minister's already taken on board the recommendations from the interim report, and as the final report notes, is putting those changes into place.
Has anyone managed to identify who those people were who were supposed to be abusing the staff?
Yeah, I have to say, not as far as I'm aware. I know the Prime Minister's gone and personally apologised to the staff for what they suffered, but I don't think anybody's aware of exactly who has committed that in the first place. But we've got to be clear, that kind of behaviour, that kind of attitude towards anybody is completely unacceptable. As I say, we're all working together. Whatever your role within the government, you are part of delivering for the government.
Do you think that those people should be found and then sacked?
Well, that's something that the civil service themselves and Number 10, I know, will be looking at to get to the bottom of what happened. But I think the important thing is that those people who are treated that way know that the senior management there, the Prime Minister, who is himself obviously the leader there of not just our party but of number 10 in the government, has made it very clear it's not acceptable and has apologised to them personally for how they've been treated.
One of the things that I was a bit puzzled about, I said on Wednesday as well, is the fact that Sue Gray didn't investigate the alleged Abenite party in the number 10 flat. That was on November the 13th, 2020. This is the Sunday Times this morning, and they're talking again about the alleged pressure on Sue Gray. Another key passage to be altered concerned the alleged Abenite party in the Prime Minister's flat above Downing Street on November the 13th, 2020. An earlier draft of the report referred to music being played, and then it goes on to say, according to two sources, Stephen Barclay, Johnson's chief of staff, tweaked it on the eve of the report's publication, a claim denied by Downing Street. So what's going on there? Was there any tweaking, if you like, of that?
Well, look, I'd say, again, a couple of key points. First of all, this is another situation the police looked at and people were not finding, didn't find the issue. No, yeah, I know you're asking about the Sue Gray report, but there is an important fact here. The number 10 Downing Street are saying that this claim is not correct, that it's untrue, and I would say that's backed up by the fact that the police didn't see anything there that required anybody being fined. So I think the Downing Street statement is a fair statement. The
problem about the Downing Street statement, if I'm going to level with you, is that Downing Street have apologised for lying or misleading journalists about Partygate, right? You know, the Prime Minister's spokesman had to issue an apology saying there were failures in both what happened and how it was handled subsequently, and he apologised for that. So how can we trust what Downing Street is saying? It's a bit like the boy who cried wolf.
Well, a couple of things. Again, I think, look, first of all, it's a different Downing Street. You've got a different team of people. The Chief of Staff is different.
The Prime Minister's the same.
Yeah, but the team that you're talking about, the team that work with the Prime Minister, that lead on these issues, and Steve Barclay himself is new and wasn't there at the time of those original mistakes and issues happened. But on top of that, it's not just Downing Street denying it. We've also got a situation where the police have looked at this particular set of incidents and didn't find an issue there to find people.
Can you come on this programme and give us an assurance, a black and white assurance, that nobody in Downing Street, in number 10 or in the civil service tried to influence the Sue Gray report?
I'm absolutely confident that's the case. Look, I wasn't part of the report. I'm not part of the number 10 team that worked with Sue Gray on the report. But as I said, and I appreciate your point about the general public don't know Sue Gray, but those who have worked with Sue Gray across government, both people who...
But the question isn't about whether the report was influenced, it was about whether that influence was attempted.
Yeah, no, I understand that. But I say anybody who's working number 10 knows Sue Gray well enough to know that that kind of thing wouldn't work. And no, I'm confident, and particularly now the number 10 have outrightly made the point and denied that this happened. I am confident that Sue Gray had the freedom to write the report that she was comfortable to write and publish.
OK. Now, currently 34 MPs have publicly questioned the Prime Minister's position. Conservative MPs, this is. 24 are calling for him to go as soon as possible. That's according to the sort of Sky News spreadsheet that's been meticulously kept by our producer, Tom Larkin. Do you think that the Prime Minister is going to face a confidence vote?
I don't think he will, actually. I don't think it's in the interest of the country. I don't think it's in the interest of the Conservative Party. And obviously I'm somebody who was chairman of the party through the last Prime Minister having not only a confidence vote, but I was the chairman who ran that leadership campaign. So I've seen this from both sides. I don't think it's in anybody's interest. No, I don't think we will see that happen.
The reason that I'm asking is because obviously, you know, 24 calling for him to go is still quite below the 54 needed to trigger a vote of no confidence. But as you all very well remember, when the confidence vote was triggered in Theresa May, the number of people who had letters in was roughly double the number who'd said publicly that they had done so. Well,
first of all, let's be clear, that's rumour and supposition. Nobody knows how many letters are in. One thing I do know from having been chairman of the party, I worked obviously closely with Graham Brady because you run the leadership campaign between what's called the 1922 committee and the party. And what I do know is there's only one person who knows how many letters are in, and that is Graham Brady. That's never leaked. I doubt it ever will leak. And so anybody who's debating what the numbers were back then or are today, it's pure supposition.
But isn't that the point, right? That we don't actually know how many letters are in, and so it actually could be a lot higher than we think. And then the number could be hit.
But it could also be lower. Look, for example, you talked about the fact that we've got the Sky News list of who has said different things out there. I can remember a few months ago, one of your reporters at Sky News saying that I hadn't supported the Prime Minister because I hadn't tweeted, missing the fact that I was the first minister out on TV supporting the Prime Minister. So, look, these lists are there. People have their things that they'll say publicly. I can remember as a relatively new MP after David Cameron came into government as Prime Minister in, I think it was about 2011, 2012, we had people writing and saying they'd written letters in back then. This is something that does happen. I wish it didn't. I think we should all be focused on getting on with the job. I know in dealing with the Prime Minister, both on Northern Ireland issues and more widely in Cabinet, that his focus, rightly, is on getting things done for people in the United Kingdom, particularly at the difficult point we're at where people are facing such financial challenges.
A difficult point that's reflected in some of the polling, and we've got this YouGov MRRP poll. It's the same model that predicted the general election results, and this has shown the Conservatives would lose all but 3 of the 88 battleground seats that you hold by a slim margin over Labour. When you saw that, how did you feel?
As I've always done with polling, I've probably said this on your show before, look, polling is a snapshot. And first of all, we've got a fair way to go. There's not a general election in the next few months. It's, could well be a fair way away. Well, it could be a fair way away. And actually, there's a lot of work we are doing to deliver for people. And I hope by the time we get to that general election, people will see two key things. One is that we have delivered. The Prime Minister's got those big calls right, and they'll see a manifesto that's exciting about the future. But one other thing I would just say that is important on polling. It is a snapshot. I can remember in the 2015 general election, 2 or 3 days before polling day, a poll came out that told me I was losing my seat to Labour. My majority actually went up. So we have to remember that, these polls are a snapshot. The work we do as parliamentarians, as campaigners, can make a very, very big difference. And I still think we will win the next general election, and I think that's in the best interest of the country.
It's interesting when you said that a general election won't be for the next few months. Is that an acknowledgement that it could be a bit earlier than we're expecting?
No, I just mean this is a poll as of today. It's a snapshot of where we are today. But even if it was a snapshot of today, and even if the general election was next Thursday, we've had elections before where the polls have been proven to be out. And as I say, I give that example in my own constituency. 2 or 3 days before polling in one election told me I was going to lose by a fair few percent, and in fact my majority went up.
So Boris Johnson will be hoping the same because he's down to lose his seat.
And actually, if you remember going into 2019, there were reports that the Prime Minister was going to lose his seat, and that didn't prove to be the case. He's a good Member of Parliament. I think he's a superb Prime Minister. And if you look at these big decisions, whether it's Ukraine or through COVID, he has got them right, and I think that is what we need in our country.
Now, on Friday, Boris Johnson amended the rules of the Ministerial Code to make it clear that ministers won't always be expected to resign for breaching it. And before doing this programme on Twitter, I asked if there's any questions that people would like to ask. And I know Twitter is, Twitter, but still. I was quite surprised, actually, because this subject came up more than any other. Andrew Simmons, he wants you to explain Johnson's rewriting of the forward to the Ministerial Code. Don't honesty, integrity, transparency matter anymore? He's referring to the Prime Minister removing those words from the forward. Colm Norton, it would be nice to hear a Cabinet Minister answer a question, and with the new ministerial rules, he wouldn't even have to resign for doing so. Why is the Prime Minister trying to water down parliamentary standards?
Well, he's not. And let's remember, there's been a bit of misinformation out there about this. First of all, when the Ministerial Code is updated, which it is relatively regularly, I'm one of those who obviously has to fill in all of the members' ministerial declarations, and that's updated regularly as well. So whenever it's updated quite regularly anyway. But this comes from the recommendations from the Commission, and some of it from Lord Guide, around what there should be, and this idea of there being a graduated penalty process. People still have to resign if they commit misleading the House or something serious, but there was a request from others, including Lord Guy and the Commission, that we actually do have this kind of graduated approach. So it means that if there's a minor infraction, whereas before there may be a decision, if there was a minor infraction, in theory that's too minor to resign, then there's no penalty. There are now a series of penalties for different infractions if anybody commits an infraction in the first place.
Labour are calling a vote on whether ministers who commit serious breaches of the Ministerial Code should have to resign. In other words, they're effectively forcing Conservative MPs to put their name to these changes. It's going to feel quite uncomfortable, isn't it? A bit reminiscent of Owen Paterson, perhaps. How are you going to be voting?
Well, obviously, I'll look at the details of what the vote is, because these things, the wording of these can be quite important. But look, to me, this feels like just Labour politicking over this. They're just playing games, when actually what we should be doing is focusing on the issues that matter. Not the internal navel-gazing of Westminster, but actually getting on with helping people. As we did this week, the massive announcement from the Chancellor around the support for people who are struggling with that global inflation challenge, making sure we're putting the support in there, as we are in Northern Ireland at Belfast with the in-laws coming out of Tales, to support people in Ukraine in these other issues, whether it's roads, making sure the money's there for local authorities to repair the potholes that drive people crazy every day, or the bigger issues that are affecting their pocket and their families. That's what they want to see government and Parliament focused on, I think.
Talking about the measures announced by the Chancellor, he also announced an energy profits levy on oil and gas companies, what most of us, I guess, would call a windfall tax, but we can't use that term for the Conservative Party for obvious reasons. Now, you previously said a windfall tax sounds attractive, but it doesn't work. Have you quite conveniently changed your mind there?
No, I haven't actually. Look, I believe in a low-tax economy, and the point I was making was that what Labour were asking for was a straight windfall tax that disincentivised investment from companies, actually would worry companies in other sectors. And it didn't
actually, some companies like Shell have said that your policy is going to discourage investment as well.
Yeah, I know I've seen that, but let me just finish the point. And it also meant very, very little money actually to go into people's pockets to help them. One of the things that was clear once we dug into this was Labour's claims were completely false. What the Chancellor's outlined is different. First of all, I doubt many Conservatives are comfortable with taxes of any sort. We want to see a low-tax economy, more people in people's pockets to drive growth. But we are in unprecedented times. And I've said before, actually, as we went through COVID, we were there to help people. And I think our track record is, in unprecedented times, with a difficult situation, we will do what we can to help. And what the Chancellor's outlined is different. Because the Chancellor's structure, yes, it does put that profit levy on. It's temporary. It means much more money coming back to help people, but he's also put in a tax break that means that if those companies do what they were meant to be doing, which is investing, then they get the tax benefit that balances this out. So it's not a windfall tax in the sense that Labour put in. It's a much more structured, targeted approach that can drive investment, which we need in that sector, but also help people with the challenges they're facing with the cost of living due to global inflation pressures.
You're talking about wanting to focus on the things that matter to people. The story that the Conservative Party are pushing today is about imperial measurements. You know, this kind of classic, story that seems to come around every 6 months to a year. Now, Alicia Cairns, the Conservative MP, has tweeted this morning to say not one constituent ever has asked for this. This isn't a Brexit freedom. It's a nonsense.
Well, I have to say, in my constituency, I've had a different response. I've already had people pleased about it. And as you said, this is something that comes up regularly through the years. There are people who want to go back and have that. But
it comes up regularly because the government say they're going to do it. I mean, 8 months ago, at the Times, Boris Johnson is to announce the return of imperial weights and measures. That was 8 months ago. He's doing it again today.
This is in a week where, as I say, we've done some major legislation for Northern Ireland. We've done major announcement to help people with the cost of living. One of the biggest structural things we've done financially for a very long time, another £21 billion of support to help people. And yes, look, there is something in there that's more light-hearted in terms of imperial measurements, something people like. Look, I'm of an age where I still think in my brain in two ways. I will sometimes talk in metres, I'll also talk in feet, litres and pints, miles and kilometres. And this just gives people the freedom. And for businesses, and there are sectors out there, I know in my constituency some of the market traders and the vegetable traders, as well as some of the pubs, will be pleased to be able to go back to those imperial measurements. We're just saying you now have a choice. And now we've left the EU, we can do that. Yes, it's one of the smaller things we can do as we've left the EU, and there are other bigger things we can do, we want to do, but it's an indication we now have the freedom to make these decisions ourselves.
Just finally, because we are at a time, how concerned are you about the scenes that we saw outside the Champions League final last night? Liverpool supporters saying they were tear-gassed.
Yeah, look, I heard some of this last night. I think it is concerning. I think we do need to ensure that they are looking into how this happened. It's not the first time we've seen this overseas, actually, and we're very lucky here in the UK. We've got a police force who have specialism in this area. They're very, very good at it, and we've got to learn a little bit about what happened over there, get to the bottom of it. But it is concerning to see that people either didn't get into the stadium or were treated in the way that some of them seem to have been treated with a very aggressive approach.
Liverpool want to see an investigation. Do you think that would be a good idea?
I think I can understand that. I think we will all want to get to the bottom of how this happened, particularly as it's not the first time in the last years. When I was policing minister, I remember overseas a similar situation, and we've got to make sure that around the world we are using the expertise that is there in how to manage policing and the security around football matches, particularly.
Okay. So you think perhaps the French police need a bit more training?
Well, I'm sure that the French will want to be looking into this themselves. It's not for me to get involved in their domestic affairs, but look, I can understand why people want to get to the bottom of this. And I think all of us, as UK citizens who were there, will want to know that things were done correctly, and if they weren't, how we learn the lessons and how we all around the world know how we can police and keep people safe at big sporting events.